Hey everybody, welcome to Cycle News, and we've been throwing the keys to a pretty cool test bike today. This is the 2020 KTM 890 Duke R. Now the 890 Duke is the replacement to the 790 Duke. It sits in the mid-range between the 690 Duke and the 390 Duke, 690 Duke, 890 Duke, and the 1290 Duke that was tested a couple of months ago here at Cycle News. There's the link up there if you want to go check that out. But yeah, the 890 Duke is pretty much an all-new bike. New engine, brand new suspension, new bodywork, new everything. It runs the same steel frame that the old bike ran, but yeah, it's pretty much a brand new thing. So we're going to go for a bit of a spin on it now, and we'll have a bit of a chat while we're doing it.
Okie doke. I didn't spend a lot of time on the 790. Most of my stuff was done on the 1290. But the times that I did ride it, I was pretty impressed. So yeah, this being the 890, yeah, as I say, it's basically all new. Board and stroke motor. It just feels a little bit more solid now. One of the big changes that they've made is the gearbox. So the gearbox is probably, and I'm not kidding when I say this, I reckon this is probably the best gearbox of any production bike that I've ridden. They changed the throw, so it's a really short throw, and because we're running with the Quick Shifter Plus, it is precision. It's just bang, bang, bang. It's so lovely to use. Yeah, it's amazing. I couldn't really, couldn't believe it when I first started using it. Whoa, okay. All right, we've got a bit of a washout down here. Yeah, so anyway, all new bike for this year. The electronics are, should be a bit careful here. Whoa, geez, okay. Well, I don't know if you can go dirt tracking per se on a 790 Duke. Or 890 Duke. Maybe this is the 890 Adventure. Who knows? Anyway, yeah. So with the bike now, we've got fully adjustable suspension up the front and the rear. The fork on the old bike wasn't adjustable at all. So very similar to what's on the 1290. It's such a great fork too. Like you can change anything you want, but it has such a great feeling under brakes. That's one thing I always loved about the 1290 as well, especially when we rode it at Portimao. When we were riding at Portimao, like you could smash that 1290 into a corner and just bury it on the brakes, and this is the same. But I think probably the best thing that I like so far about the 890, and I think this goes for a lot of mid-sized bikes, but this thing especially, is just how agile this thing is. This thing turns. They call this thing KTM's calling this thing the super scalpel, and they're not wrong, honestly. The way this thing just blasts through corners. It's got 120 odd horsepower, and that's plenty for a road bike. But man, when you get this thing in the twisties, there's very few things that are going to be able to stay with it. There's such lovely poise. It's really well balanced. It just snaps itself from side to side. So that's the great thing, is that it's snappy and agile, but it's poised. It's not nervous. You have to, probably should be careful about how I'm doing that corner. It's not nervous at all. It's very quick steering. It's almost a little bit, I hate to use the word 250 GP style. It doesn't turn as quick as that, but it's a very fast steering, agile little motorbike. Back on your side of the road, please, mate. Far out. Throttle response is very, very good. You get 4 riding modes with this thing. So you get a rain, road, and a sport mode, and then you get the track mode. And I'm currently in the track mode. We started off in the road mode. Now the road mode makes it so that you can't adjust the traction control, but if you go into the track mode, you get 9 level adjustable traction control. Now also, when you go into the track mode, you get a much more direct throttle. The way that the power comes in is much snappier. It's much more KTM-ish, if that's a fair assumption, because the way that KTM naked bikes kind of always have been, really, they've always been very snappy. You know, they're angry little bastard things. But when they brought out the 1290, for example, they kind of refined that anger somewhat. They got it to a point where it was usable and not so aggressive. But yeah, that's always been a nice little trait of KTM's. You also, okay, so woohoo, this road pops up on you quick. Good thing this thing turns so quickly. You get Brembo style limit. Oh, jeez. I mean, that was a solid bump there. This thing just soaked it up, but you know, did hit the old crown jewels a little bit on that one. Now the braking package on this thing is very good. This runs the Brembo Stylema calipers, 4-piston Stylema calipers, which are the same things that are fitted to things like the Panigale, to the Super Duke, 1290 Super Duke R. These are now the top line production calipers, at least, that are running, that Brembo is running for the sort of high level sports bikes and things like that. You get standard ABS. You also get ABS Supermoto mode, which is always a bit of fun, meaning you can ABS gets disengaged on the rear, so then you can back the thing into a corner if you so desire. But it has a really nice feel at the lever. You get this MCS master cylinder as well, which is a gorgeous thing. You know, ratio span adjustable, and yeah, it has a very, very nice feel at the lever. You know, really deft touch that you get with the Brembo master cylinders these days. Pretty similar to what we used to run on the 1290 race bikes that we were running at Pikes Peak. That was one of the first things that we replaced when we ran those things, was put a new master cylinder to get a little bit more feel. It certainly didn't need much more power. We just wanted a nicer feeling at the lever. Now the bigger motor just brings with it more torque. You know, you do get a little bit more horsepower out of the thing, but it's just now that the spread of torque is much more, I suppose, even across the rev range. You know, you can pull, this thing pulls really well. I mean, we're sitting here at 4,000 RPM in 5th gear. We will be in a minute. But it has such a lovely sort of creamy smooth level of torque, and you know, it goes beautifully. Crack on 4,000. Oh, up we go. Once you get to 6,000, you know, you can feel that thing opens up big style, and it really takes off. And you know, I'm not going to be doing it on camera. And man, when you're getting up at 9,000 RPM, this thing is still making power. You know, it's not tapering off by any means. I haven't been game enough to hit the rev limiter yet. Haven't really needed to, because it does everything that I like. I mean, this thing 4th gear, 60 mile an hour, and it just lovely little amount of torque, lovely smooth torque. Jesus, isn't that a pretty sight? And it's a funny place, Southern California. You can go to areas that you think are not going to be very nice at all, and then you have views like that. Gorgeous. Yeah, most of my racing has actually been on naked bikes, and I just love them. You can get just as much, you can do fast lap times on these things, but you can ride them to the shops, and they have an angry looking presence. You know, they're gnarly looking bikes, and this thing is a real gem of a bike. I mean, it's very much like the 1290. I love the 1290. The 1290 is just such an insane bike. It's just got so much grunt, and it handles itself well. And this is much more like the 1290, but just shrunk. So when they had the 790 and the 1290, there was a pretty big gap in terms of performance, certainly in terms of spec, what you got for your money. This is much more now like the little brother to the 1290.
Right, so that was pretty wild. Big day on the 2020 KTM 890 Duke R. Normally we would be doing this kind of stuff from a press lodge, some exotic place in the world, but that's not happening these days thanks to the bloody COVID-19 virus that's kind of ruining everyone's lives. But anyway, yeah, so really cool ride today. We knocked out about 150 or so miles. Started out in Murrieta in Southern California, ended up in Palm Desert, so right over some of the mountains, and they were mainly twisties. There wasn't too many sustained high speed stuff, which is kind of what I was more after. You know, riding on the freeway is one thing, but you want to know what it's like when you're getting into the twisties and that kind of stuff. My previous experience with the 790 was pretty limited. I'd ridden it a few times, but I hadn't spent huge amounts of time on it. Did a bit of commuting and that kind of stuff on it, but because I didn't actually get to do the launch, I was out doing other things. I think I might have been racing the 1290 at the time. Anyway, so yeah, it was cool to get out and have a go. Basically, everything's new on this thing. New engine, new gearbox, new brakes, new everything. I'll start off with the engine. Engine is about as fast as you're going to need to have a road bike. 120 odd horsepower, I think, is what they were, 119, somewhere around there, is what KTM's quoting with this bike. Now that's plenty for a street bike in anywhere that has speed limits. Basically, you get 4 riding modes with this bike. You get rain, road, sport, and track. The first 3 modes they have 4 different. The 4 riding modes have 4 very different personalities. We started out in road and then went to sport, and that sport probably is actually the ideal map, I guess you could say, for road riding, for me at least. But we threw it into track mode, and track mode is pretty aggressive. The track mode's where you really get that Super Duke almost feeling, where the thing's snappy and it throws the front wheel up and all that, and obviously it changes the electronics, it changes the throttle. You then get access to the 9-stage variable traction control as well, so that you can start dialing that sort of stuff back. It's a much more aggressive feeling, and I personally like it because I've kind of used to that with KTM. KTM's have always had that kind of aggression, sort of gnarly feeling about them, which I've always liked. But yeah, if you do stick it in sport mode, that's probably going to be fine for most people. The initial throttle response, especially in sport mode, is creamy smooth. It's really, really lovely. This is a parallel twin, it's not a V-twin, so it's just a nice little, just drives out of the corner, and it doesn't hit real hard. You don't think the thing's going quickly, and then you look at the speedo and you're like, geez, okay, we're moving here. The thing that I love more than anything is the gearbox. Gearbox, that thing is unreal. It is so much better than what the 790 was, and much better than most production bikes. I've got to be honest. Like, it's so smooth. Like, they've got a really short throw. They've changed the throw so basically it's, instead of moving it all the way up and down like that, you're going like that. It feels like a race bike. And I noticed it this morning when I first stuck it into gear. I looked down and I didn't even know the thing had gone into gear. Look, I'm in first gear. I was like, oh wow, that's pretty cool. And just when you're riding, and when you mix that in with the quick shifter, quick shifter plus, which is the optional quick shifter, lovely. Just snick, really, really sweet. Moving on to the suspension, this is the first time that mid-size Duke has got this kind of, level of suspension. This is a really, really good fork. You can really bury the thing under brakes, and it doesn't feel too doesn't have a lot of stiff, jarring sort of hits when you hit bumps as well. So the high-speed compression on the fork is actually quite nice. Previously on the 790, the times I did ride it, it was like if you hit a bump and you hit like a pothole kind of thing on the side of the road, you'd feel that through the bars. And this, while you still get a little bit on this, it soaks it up much better. When you combine the stability of that front with the brakes, you've got Brembo Stylema calipers and the MCS Master Cylinder, Brembo MCS Master Cylinder on that thing. It's almost too much braking for the bike. Like, those things are seriously, like, you touch those brakes and it stops. You've got a pretty light bike underneath you. I think it's about 360 odd pounds. I'll have to check that. But yeah, it's a very, very light bike. It's not a big bike by any stretch of the imagination. That's the same braking setup that they have on the Super Duke, which is a much bigger bike. So you got to understand there's a huge disparity, or huge difference, I should say, in the way the thing brakes. Very, very, very good feel at the lever. Trail brake that thing in and just throw it in, and it's very, very nice. I got to say, I love the fact that it's a single seat as standard. You can fit the pillion seats and the pegs and all that. I love that look, because that's a really nasty little sort of snappy look to it. It's very bratish, I guess, which is kind of cool. One of the things you'll notice when you ride these things, especially when you get the twist, is just how agile the thing is. A lot of the times when you're riding a bike that's snappy in terms of direction changes, you're basically sacrificing stability. Whereas this thing has pretty much hit the money in terms of high speed stability through nice long sweepers, but at a wind, you just go, I'm going to go over here, and it just pulls itself in, does it really, really well. You know, through when I was following a couple of guys today, chasing him up through the canyons, ripping fun. I don't think I would have had any more fun if I'd had any other bike underneath me. Certainly because of the mix in with the braking performance and the engine and the front end, and you know, all that stuff all rolled into one, and then the agility of the chassis, all that stuff. It combines for a really, really fun bike. You know, it's a bit of a jack of all trades, this kind of bike. It's probably going to be for everybody. You know, it's not like it's actually going to be a motorcycle that is specifically for the expert rider or the beginner or anything like that. Being a mid-level bike with all those adjustable modes and that kind of stuff, you have a jack of all trades bike. You know, an expert rider will get on this thing and have just as much fun as a guy who's just learning how to ride. So KTM's been very good and hit the nail on the head with that one. And when you do buy it, you're going to want to get the track package so that you can get that adjustable traction control and all that stuff. Another thing before I forget that I was pleasantly surprised with were these tires, the Michelin Power Cup tires. They were really, really good. It's been a number of years since I've ridden on Michelins. Most of the riding I've done in the last couple of years has either been on Bridgestones, Pirellis or Dunlops. So to get back on the French rubber was really, really nice. Really good braking stability those things had. You could really feel what the thing was doing. Your road holding was very good. Edge of the side of the tire feel was nice, and the peeling was good. Yeah, really good little thing. So really quite surprising. So I remember talking to Jeremy McWilliams at the 1290R launch in Portimao in Portugal, and he said when they were developing this bike, they went through basically every tire. So, you know, Bridgestones, which is the standard tire for the S22, is the standard tire for the 1290, and then you had Continentals, you had the Michelins here, you had Dunlops, you had Pirellis. In the end, they chose this one, which I was like, okay. And so I had to go off them today, and we went through some pretty crappy areas today. You know, we went through some areas where it had water running across the middle of the road, and the bike just went straight through it. And I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. And you know, some other tires out there wouldn't do that. So that was a really cool thing. I mean, they're big chunky sipes on those tires too. You know, nice get the water out of the way and get moving. And yeah, so overall grip on that thing was very, very good. I think, you know, in summary, this is a bike that anyone is going to be able to ride. Anyone will be able to have fun on it. You know, the fact that your riding position is a little bit more aggressive, you know, bars are a little bit lower, pegs are a bit further back, may not suit the really tall riders out there. I mean, I started to get slightly sore legs towards the end of the day, but you know, I'll probably get that on most bikes anyway. So yeah, still a fantastic bike, and now very much a worthy little brother to the 1290. This is cut from the same cloth as the 1290. So yeah, I think you're going to have fun on one of these things.